Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. Today's topic is actually a little bit of a different format than we've tried previously. Today we're going to do more of a live Q&A session. We've been taking questions via PPC Hero as well as Twitter to the Think PPC hashtag. And so we're going to kind of roll with those questions, and there's not necessarily one topic that we're going to be presenting on. It's turned into a bit of a potpourri. So before we get too far into things, we'll go ahead and do some quick introductions. So your presenters for today are going to be myself and Jeff Allen. I'll wait a second and let Jeff introduce himself. He'll do a much better job than I do. But I am Kayla Kurtz. I'm the paid search consultant at Hannapin Marketing. I've been with Hannapin just a little over 2 years. I also blog on PPC Hero, and I was the MC for Hero Comp this year and last. Your turn, Jeffrey.
Perfect. Thanks, Kayla. And you not only are a paid search consultant, you are my favorite paid search consultant.
Oh, see that? That's so sweet.
Might be related to you're the only paid search consultant I know, but we won't get into the details. So my name's Jeff. I'm the director of paid search here at Hannapin. As I like to say, I'm a grandfather when it comes to internet marketing. I've been doing it since 2000, with most of that time being in paid search. I've been at Hannapin for about a year and a half, and I'm very glad that Kayla is going to do a lot of the talking on the webinar today, so you don't have to listen to my extra seasonal allergy-affected nasally voice today. So,
you sound beautiful, Jeff. So as I said before, usually most of the webinars that come out of the Hannapin house, whether we're doing them completely on our own with just the PPC Hero team or we're presenting with one of our partners, there's generally speaking a very specific topic. And after having some pretty awesome success with a live Q&A, sort of everybody up on stage at the last second, if you got chosen Q&A session at HeroConf, we thought this could be an interesting way to roll out some additional webinar content. So literally this session is just going to be Jeff and I answering some questions. We got this content, Jeff, if you want to go ahead and click to the next slide. We got this content, like I said before, off of Twitter, off of PPC Hero. We've started a new hashtag that we want everybody to start using, just hashtag ThinkPPC. So you can send us any questions you've got throughout the presentation today, and we'll take some additional live questions that we've not gotten previously at the end. Like I said, all these questions came through PPC Hero, Twitter. We're still taking questions now. We will take some live ones at the end. And if you've also got questions but don't necessarily want to run to Twitter to send them, you can also shoot them to us over in the chat box.
okay, perfect. So really quick, we're going to do a poll question. These really help us tailor the way we answer our questions when we do these webinars. So the first question we would like you guys to answer is, how long have you been in PPC? The options: less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and 5+ years. Kayla, I'm kind of interested while we get some of these results rolling in. What do you kind of think we're going to hear from this? Usually a Q&A maybe kind of skewed a little bit more towards the less experienced?
Yeah, I was going to say probably 1 to 3 years. That was the thought that I had. I think probably less than a year, you're still searching through all the blogs yourself and not even necessarily sure what questions you want to ask.
That makes sense. Well, it looks like we have the results in, and fairly accurate. So 1 to 3 years and 3 to 5 years being the bulk of the people on here. So that will kind of tell us that we maybe need to be a little more specific in our answers and try to go into as much detail as possible. And the format for us answering these questions is really, we'll kind of switch off who answers the question, but then keep each other honest and make sure we cover all our bases as we go through it. So we'll jump into the first question. I'm actually going to start with this one. So we received a question: what are some quick CRO wins that I should test? That's an excellent question, because we all know how competitive PPC is getting. It's a little bit different today than of yesteryear. CPCs are going up a lot of places, click-through rates are going down, conversion rates going down, everything like that. So I think finding quick wins in landing page testing is really important. I think one that we've tested recently that was kind of astonishing how easy it was simply font size. So going from 12-point font to 14-point font, and then even maybe trying 16-point font worked pretty well. We found 14-point was kind of the breaking point, or maybe it got too large. But that was a pretty quick win for us. A second quick win is simply how you label your navigation. So using benefit-driven links to go to different pages on your site versus descriptive tend to have pretty good increase in on-page analytics. So higher time on site, higher number of pages per visit, everything like that, but also better engagement that led to higher conversion rates for whatever the desired result you were looking for was. And then the old kind of tried and true favorite is buttons. It's kind of said too many times. I think I say button too often in my own personal life, but it actually works fairly well. Button color, button size, most specifically button text. It's something that when someone creates a landing page for the first time, maybe gets overlooked and it says something like click here or submit or something like that. Again, something more orientated to benefit driven, like learn more, find out more, download if you can, download white paper or something like that. Works pretty well. So those are kind of my quick and easy CRO wins. Kayla, do you have any thing to add to that?
I always think that it's beneficial to play around with form length. So whether it be the way you're pushing those questions, so are you using the really typical name, email, phone number, company fields? Can you maybe ask for that information in a more creative way that might push that information to come through at a higher rate? And then also just the total number of fields in those forms. I think that that's a huge area that you can learn a lot about your searchers and your customers and how quickly they want you to be able to contact them or they want to be able to get their information to you. Maybe 3 or 4 fields is better, but if you add additional fields, you get better information in the long haul. So I'm huge on form testing. I think also just the length of the conversion process itself. So Jeff mentioned, really labeling the navigation incredibly well, and I think that that's important. And then I also think that keeping your customers aware of what step in the conversion process they're at, and how close they are to being done. I think that's a huge one.
Okay, makes perfect sense. We're getting, just so everyone knows, we're getting a ton of questions right now, so we'll try to go through the kind of pre-form questions as quickly as possible so that we can get to them. I'm watching as they roll in, and there's some good ones, so we will get to them. Question 2, I'm going to let Kayla answer this one, but it's, in essence, what direction is the PPC industry headed in? Is it social, video, PLAs? Basically, if you're trying to get ahead of the curve, how do you do that? So, Kayla?
Yeah, I think social is definitely going to be a big one. As Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook becomes huger, bigger and bigger as it is growing. I really think that those social engines are going to become, from a paid search standpoint, far more important. Those social networks are being written into the algorithms and a little bit more in terms of rankings. So definitely think we're going to see a lot there. I'm admittedly really nervous about videos just because I don't like my YouTube videos being impeded on. So I'm a little bit just nervous about those, period. I think a lot of outside of Google attention would be well paid, specifically to Bing. They're making huge strides in terms of the size that they are and the size of the search volume that they're bringing in each and every year. So that's my quick answer. Jeff, you have anything to add?
So just to say that social, I think, is going to be the key. Facebook is finally starting to figure out how to deliver relevant ads and get people to click on them. It's still not necessarily there, although I sat with a client just earlier this week that spending $50,000 a month at a CPA half of what Google is, and lead quality was still good. And so clearly they've kind of figured something out there. But I think that's it. How we figure that out with search queries diminishing, how we figure out how to go to social where they are is going to be key. And we actually have a poll question about this as well. So I'd certainly like to hear what you guys think. What direction do you think the PPC industry is headed in? So our options are: the future of PPC is all in video, social PPCs edging ahead, or attribution modeling across devices, which has been pretty interesting and relevant with all the changes to enhanced campaigns. Of any of those, do you think attribution ekes out above the other two, Kayla, or do you think social and not so much video?
I think I would definitely be tied between social and the attribution modeling. I'd probably lean more towards attribution modeling because social is a piece of that, right? So you can't really call it just the social piece when it's all over attribution. What do you think?
Yeah, I think attribution is really a pretty key piece of it all.
Mhm.
I think that as we get better understanding of how display affects search, can you grow search volume by working with display, or how mobile is going to impact it, which we'll talk about a lot more later, and all those different things. I think that that's probably the most interesting question that we all have to figure out. And it looks like people agree. So 83% say attribution modeling across devices, 17% social. Uh, Apparently, everyone agrees with Kayla and think that video is not so hot. Um, so, so thanks everyone for doing that. I appreciate it. So the next question I'll take first. So how can I measure mobile revenue from PPC visits? This is a horrible question because it's really, really hard to answer. It used to be pretty simple. I used to be able to tell you exactly how much revenue all my mobile devices created. Now we're all figuring out together. So my recommendation for whoever asked this question is to dig into value track parameters, figure out how to use them, make sure your backend can pull that data through. And that's really where you're going to be able to figure out. The second part of that is universal analytics is going to be able to start providing a lot more information. I mean, I don't have any specific insight to that other than they keep saying upgrade to universal analytics, and in the next couple of months you'll be rewarded for that. So I know you're going to be able to put offline transaction data into there, what happens at your call center, what happens at your store potentially, and certainly by device as well, I would assume. So like I said, we're all figuring this piece out together. Enhanced campaigns definitely threw this for a curve, but look at value track parameters and get really good at universal analytics. Kayla, do you have any additional thoughts?
No, I think you really nailed it. I think that this is definitely going to be something that is going to be a growing strategy that we continue to refine. I know that, mobile has always been, it's been really important to have even just your mobile audience segmented out into individual mini audiences within that. So, I still fully believe that that kind of a method is going to be incredibly important. It's just that as enhanced campaigns change the game and other similar things down the road, because knock on wood, we're not done yet, right? I think that just having as much back end data as you can and setting up as intricate of tracking as you've got available is going to be incredibly important.
Okay, perfect. So the next question we'll let Kayla answer. How do SEM managers prove value to a business owner's company?
Not gonna lie, I saw that this question came across and it prompted me to write a blog about it. So I think that what really becomes important and how you explain this value to a business owner is to find out what their bottom line is. So you may be looking at conversions as your target metric, or cost per lead is your target metric that you're really paying attention to on a goal level for them. But odds are that's not their target metric, right? They're probably looking at revenue, new clients, things like that. Find out what that true target end game metric is for them, and focus there. That I truly believe is the way you can prove the most value. I hear a lot of situations where account managers, they're great at what they do and they know that, and they spend a lot of time explaining click-through rate. And the truth of it is that business owner, unless he's asked you to test a very specific ad copy message or something, he probably doesn't necessarily care about the click-through rate. How does that click-through rate affect his end revenue numbers?
Yep, I think that's a very good point, and I think putting it in terms of what's most important to the business owner is key. They don't necessarily understand the nuts and bolts, or want to know about the nuts and bolts, even if they understand it. They want to know the true impact. I think attribution is a big key to this piece.
Mm-hmm.
So how does PPC affect other things? Does it just cannibalize sales from SEO or other channels you would have got? Or are there incremental sales increases? And that's something that I think we spend a lot of time here is figuring out what those are through different tests, to make sure when we say we got you this many sales, those aren't sales you would have had anyway, but they're actually new sales. So I think that's a pretty important part of it. So we have another poll question here. How do you prove value from your SEM efforts? So we'd like to hear what you guys are doing to make sure that business owners or bosses or clients understand the value they're getting. So measure, report on incrementality, measure and report on incrementality, report on search engine marketing return on investment. So just by itself, do you just look at it and say, this is for every dollar you spent on, say, PPC, this is how much you got back? Showing month over month or year over year performance, say, here's how we grew it, or is it all the above? Or you can tweet at us and tell us if you think it's something completely different. So I think, I mean, for a lot of, I think for a lot of clients I work with, it's really all of these. They want to know these things three things specifically. What's the incrementality? What's the real value of doing this above and beyond all my other stuff? What's the ROI specifically from it, dollar for dollar? And how am I doing compared to last month and last year? So I think that it's really about all of them. Kayla, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely would go with all of the above. And, this is something else that I talked about in the blog. I think it also depends, is this do you frequently talk to this business owner, or is this the one time a year you're able to get in front of them? That's really how you can determine how you're going to prove that value. And it looks like everybody tends to agree with us, which is good.
Absolutely. Cool. So this is one of my favorite questions. What tips would you give someone just getting into the PPC industry? So a big part of my job is interviews, and so I get this question a lot, or in training I like to talk about it a lot. And I think if I was just to narrow down to one very specific thing, it would be focus on why, not on how.
Mm-hmm.
So I can teach anyone how to change bids, how to write ads, how to structure a campaign, how to talk to a client, how to prepare a report. I can teach the how in a pretty short amount of time, but the why, and I guess the when along with that's a lot harder. Why do you change bids? When do you change bids? Why do you need to build a new campaign? Or why do you need to pause a campaign? All those things are, I think, not focused as heavily on in typical trainings. That I think is the biggest piece of advice I can get is be one of those kids that just says why, and once you understand that, the how comes pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call. I think determining what your purpose is with paid search, because it's easy as you get into it, especially in those first few months, to get a little scared at the data you're looking at and the kind of control you've potentially got in a client's account. So it can be really scary. Understanding what your overall purpose is really important. On a really nitty-gritty basis, I think go out and find 5 blogs that post regularly. So, not to give PPC Hero too much love, but we try to post daily, right? There's new, fresh content on there every single day. Find things that are similar to PPC Hero that publish new content, that have got stuff that's beginning up through advanced topics. And, force yourself to read a handful of different beginner intro level blogs. Like Jeff said, not necessarily on the mechanics of it, but on the strategy and the methodologies behind how you work on a paid search account long term.
Absolutely. Great advice. So, Kayla, I'll let you talk about everyone's favorite new product release, enhanced campaigns. This one specifically, I guess, a two-parter. So, enhanced campaigns and conversion optimizer, how do they get along? But really the question, how do you really, I think really should probably be underlined, how do you really feel about Google's enhanced campaigns?
Yeah, Jeff, I'll let you handle the enhanced campaigns and conversion optimizer half of it, because I've got all of my campaigns switched over to enhanced, but I'm not a conversion optimizer fan, so that I don't see that happening, knock on wood, on any of my accounts. But so if hopefully you've got some experience with that, Jeff. Conversion optimizer is not my friend. In terms of enhanced campaigns overall, my attitude, I was really frustrated when they first rolled out. I still don't necessarily see the top level value of their purpose. But as with anything in paid search, we've got to roll with the punches. This is not going to be the last thing that Google or, another one of the big search engines rolls out on our behalf that's, quote unquote helpful. So I think that ultimately you've just got to pull up your bootstraps and understand that if it's not enhanced campaigns, it's going to be something else. So, understand that this is the ability that you have right now using enhanced campaigns. Know that we do have power as a paid search audience to make things change a little bit. So we've already seen a couple of revisions on enhanced campaigns just since they rolled them out. So it's definitely not done. It's not 100% completed. So don't lose hope. I guess that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Yeah, so you're an optimist. That's why you're my favorite paid search consultant. So as far as the first part goes, enhanced campaigns and conversion optimizer, we don't use conversion optimizer frequently on many of our accounts, but we have used it a little bit, and it's worked fairly well. So I mean, it's just going to optimize CPA across device and everything like that. Actually, maybe part of the solution to tablet, although not a great solution to how you deal with tablet, but it should be making those decisions whether that's going to convert based on the device and everything like that, just like it always did. So we have seen some success. I just don't personally like handing over that level of control. I prefer either scripts we've created or other third-party tools to help with that kind of bid optimization. As far as how I really feel about Google's enhanced campaigns, so I guess I'll start by saying we're now 100% upgraded to enhanced campaigns outside of a few really high spending Google Display Network things that it's a little trickier on. So we've integrated. Wasn't painful. It took a little bit of time, but we're fine. The campaigns are still hitting goals and everything like that. So it's not this big scary thing. I will say how I personally feel about it is I'm not a fan. So we have a monthly training day where we just shut down the office and everyone does research in the morning and then meets in the afternoon to do training. And we did a how to audit an account post enhanced campaigns. And it literally took an hour just to get data in a way that we could use it. So whereas we used to be able to download one report where it would show all the data side by side and nicely segmented and we could make optimizations based on it, now you can't even get any of the data you need in one place. So you have to do VLOOKUPs just to match geo bid modifiers with actual geo performance because you can't pull conversions in and then match that to the campaign and the ad group and all that fun stuff. Same thing with mobile. You can't look at the mobile bid optimizer alongside with actual performance for that. And so you've got to pull all that stuff together and merge it. And it's just painful. I mean, that's the honest truth. So we received a question already about whether we think they'll ever give us tablet bid multipliers. And I think yes. And I think we'll start seeing conversion data within the bid multiplier tabs, maybe the bid multipliers within the normal campaign data, and so we can see it all together. I think it's coming out. I think it was just a hasty move. I think it had to roll out fast. I think that probably before the end of July deadline, we'll see some of these features. I don't know if tablet will be ready by then, but I think we'll see a lot of the features we're really struggling with right now and want to see. But you know, like I said, it is what it is. Most of our campaigns are upgraded and we're still able to hit goals. It's just a lot more time consuming, significantly more time consuming.
Yeah, agreed.
So we do have a poll question. I have a feeling I know how this one's going to go, but we would like to hear from you guys. How do you feel about enhanced campaigns? So I love it. It's the wave of the future. Meh. I'm undecided, or it's ruining my life. So we didn't give anyone an easy way out on this one. You have to decide one or the other. If you had to choose, Kayla, where would you put it?
I'd go meh. Not only do I just like saying meh, but you know, like you said, it's not necessarily changed performance a great deal, either good or bad. So, I mean, like you said, again, I don't think that they're done. I think a lot of the things that we're frustrated with are going to change. So I'm slightly frustrated now, but I don't look to stay that way.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like for the most part, people are undecided. So 49% undecided, 29% meh, and 17% it's ruining my life. So I would probably put myself in the meh, but it's really, it's just difficult, like I said. Yeah. So perfect. So now we have some time to answer some live questions. So really appreciate you guys' participation. They've been coming in like crazy. So the very first one, and it's one I know Kayla's actually had some experience with, so I'll ask it to her. If I'm in AdWords and I'm running an AdWords account and I don't have any conversion data, any conversion tracking, should I stop it, or should I keep going? And not only if I don't have conversion tracking, but let's just say I'm getting lots of clicks, they're really cheap, a lot of good traffic to my site. They don't seem to be converting, so I have tracking, but it's not working.
Yeah, I think if you don't have conversion data, it becomes a little more of a tricky question because you may be getting conversions and you don't know it. In situations where I've had to manage accounts that are lacking that conversion data, and I have done that frequently, you'd be surprised. Pick the next secondary metric and optimize that way and do it in very small buckets. So if you're going to make a small change that's leading to one particular ad group in your account, only change that one and then watch your revenue or your sales on the back end for a short time. See if you can determine any relationships that way. If you do have conversion data, however, and you're just getting a lot of clicks but not necessarily converting, I would do a little bit of troubleshooting first. First, just verify that the code that you dropped you put in the right place, and that the whatever infrastructure you're using to host your website allows the code to track things back. That's where I've had the most issues, is that the system upgrades or something, and it renders the conversion code incapable of functioning, even though it's there. So I'm a huge proponent of troubleshooting before you just call anything a wash. And if you're getting a lot of clicks, and I would then start looking at some more quote SEO type metrics. Look at your time on site, look at your bounce rates, see how it looks like people are interacting once they get to the site beyond that click. And that may be giving you at least an inclination of the success from a branding standpoint, at least.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think if you're getting clicks, you have tracking, you're not seeing any sales from it. I think the really basic answer is yeah, stop doing it. I mean, the point of PPC is it's measurable, and you can know if it's giving you return on investment or not. What I would say is if it's not working, there might be a bigger issue. So look at your keywords. Are they too broad? Look at your landing pages. Is it not good enough to actually convert? Think through all of that. And also so we apply a matrix to all of our keywords so that we make sure we understand when it's time to turn them off. And so think through your own strategy. When is it time to cut bait and move on with a particular keyword or the account? You have to decide where the investment's worth it. But I mean, I think it rounds out to PPC. I love it because it's measurable, and if it's not working for you, it's not working for you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to another question, I'm going to kind of move through a few of these fast so we can get through. And just so you guys know, we will post answers to the ones we don't answer on PPC Hero. So we won't forget about you. Some of these were pretty in-depth answers that I want to make sure, one, I give an accurate statement on, and two, we have time to explain it fully. But the next question that I want to talk about is the fact that AdWords no longer is allowing you to show phone numbers and ads. We had a question about that, and the problem being that call extensions don't show all the time. Is there a way to force it to show all the time? The answer is no, there's not a way to force it. Google decides when to show your phone extension. The higher you bid up and the better your quality score, the more often it's going to show. But by no stretch are you going to show it all the time. It's just a Google decision. So it's based on relevancy, bid, and all that stuff, and how useful they think it's going to be to the user. We got a question about, do you think separate bidding for tablet and unenhanced campaigns? I think yes, but I don't think for a few months. Just reading through a few of these questions here. We got one on the device preference setting for call extensions. So you can click a box that says this should be a mobile preferred extension, and they ask why you would do that. And the basic answer is to show a different extension on a mobile device compared to a desktop device. So you do have some ability to control what shows there and when, just in case there was some reason you wanted to show a user a different thing, a different call to action or something like that when they're on their mobile device. So Kayla, I have a question for you. So the question is, keywords that are not getting any impressions, so low impression volume keywords, do you delete them from the account, or what's your strategy with those?
If they're not getting any impressions and you've done the due diligence work to find out why, yeah, I mean, if they're not performing, they're just dead weight. So I would delete them. If there's any inclination whatsoever that there's something that you've potentially overlooked, I would just pause it and not delete it yet in case you want to come back to it later. It may be a situation where maybe that keyword just isn't getting a lot of impression action that particular month, but next month it could turn into something. Of course, if you delete the keyword and then you want to try to add it back in that same ad group, you're going to have some trouble. So I would be hesitant to delete it unless you've seen that 0 impression information for a really extended period of time. Jeff, do you have any additional thoughts?
I honestly think that probably summed it up. So
I think that's the first time you've ever not added stuff to my speeches. This is great.
You're welcome. So the next question is, I never really fully understood what goes into the landing page experience part of the quality score. So page load, relevancy, design, human review, those types of things. I can answer this by saying I do know that the vast majority of it is load time and bounce rate. So that's the biggest thing. Make your site faster and make sure it's highly relevant, and relevancy meaning when people get there, they seem to actually like what they're experiencing. So it's not that they actually like the design or you said something that's really interesting or funny or whatever that is. It's that they got what they were looking for and they actually stayed on the site and looked around and tried to do what you want them to do, but also what they're trying to do. But really, as bounce rate and load time is the lion's share of landing page experience. So we had a question, just trying to find it. Oh, so the question was, I have a lot of campaigns where my highest click-through rate keyword is also my highest cost per click keyword. And so the question is, if it's if it's the highest cost per click, should I lower the bid on that, even though it's a high click-through rate? Should I raise the bid on that? What should I guess, to encapsulate, what should the bidding strategy be if the best click-through rate is also the highest CPC keyword? So Kayla, why don't you take a stab at that?
Yeah, I would, my very first thing would be what average position is that bid getting me? So I would definitely try to do some testing if it's not been done already on reducing the bid just a little bit. So if you're in position one, try showing up in position two for potentially less expensive click cost. And then, if that still gets you a high enough volume of conversions in the back end that it makes it actually more valuable than that top spot, that would be my first method.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think that a lot of it comes back to goals. So I think your point is perfectly valid. If it's a high average position, well, it probably has a high click-through rate because it's at the top of the page, maybe more site links are showing with it, or call extensions, and all these different things that help it take up more real estate. And so maybe it's just a more clickable ad, or just top of the page, so getting a lot of clicks from the people who don't want to scroll down the page or look for something else. But at the end of the day, I think, at least in the world I operate in, which is usually goal driven, so conversion driven, it's really going to hit the goal. So I don't really care about average CPC as much as I care about CPA, CPL, return on ad spend, return on investment, those kind of metrics.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes in my accounts, the keywords with the higher CPC is the one that works best for me. And the reason why it has a high CPC is because all the advertisers on that keyword have realized it's a really good keyword, and so we go in a bidding war. So yeah, I think you need to take a look at the goals and is it achieving it. Along the same lines, they're asking so we have a question that if my bid price is $2.50, but my average CPC is $1, would raising my bid to $3.50 or $4 or whatever it may be, would that actually give me more impressions? So I guess this the age-old question is, why is there so much headroom between my max CPC bid and what I'm actually paying per click? Kayla, I'll give you a first shot at it again.
Oh goodness. Yeah. I don't know. Jeff, I'm punting back over to you for a second. I need a minute.
So no
I don't
worries.
know that.
So a lot of times what I find, and obviously I don't know exactly what's going on here, so it's a little hard without all the data, but a lot of times it's a quality score issue. So you have a really low quality score, someone else has a much better quality score than you, so they're winning the auction at a lower bid price, and that lowers your bid down. So it's not so much about increasing your bid as it's working on the keyword itself. The other thing is you may be at the highest average position that you're going to be at, you're at a 1, and that's where you're going to be, and so bidding up doesn't actually change anything. It's just saying you're willing to pay more, but not going to do you any good because you're not actually going to be able to pay more because you're already winning all the auctions in the top spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's a good point. I guess my tendency is to never believe that budget or my click cost is what's going to get me long-term results. So I tend to venture more towards the quality score side of it, see if I can get myself a little bit of help on that end of it before I just run to, necessarily making it budget or an increase in click cost.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So we got a question, kind of another bidding question. We have a few bidding questions, so I think that people are clearly interested in that aspect of things. But this one's about CPM bidding on the display network. And so the question is, we raised our CPM bid, but we're not getting any more clicks. So we care about clicks. CPC's gone up, but we're not getting any more clicks. And really, it's how the CPM auction works. That's why I don't like CPM. In my experience, you end up paying a lot more for the click because you have to bid higher in order to be able to get more of the real estate, just the way that the ads go to auction. So my recommendation is turn off CPM, go to CPC, and focus on that. That's the way you're going to get more clicks. And also, the second part of that, I guess, is give it some time. Display sometimes just takes time to build up. You got to get publishers to start taking your ads once they see what you're willing to pay. A lot of times they're willing to do that. So any additions to that, Kayla?
Nope, I think you nailed it.
Okay. So we have another question, and maybe our last one, depending on how quickly we answer it here. is what do you think about having a keyword that is both broad match and phrase match in the same ad group? Caleb?
Oh. Yeah, I've had accounts that have been successful with ad groups split out by match type, and I've also had success where match types are sort of intermingled in one ad group, but they're covering one very specific subcategory of product or service. I think that the thing to keep in mind there is just watch what you've set your max bids at for those two keywords, and don't let the broad match necessarily steal all of your clicks when you could potentially be getting a more qualified click from that phrase match, or potentially even an exact match version of that same keyword. I think it just comes down to making sure your bids are set up the right way, because again, they're going to push to the keyword with the highest click cost if you give them the ability to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree, and just basically for the reasons you said, I prefer to break them out.
Mm-hmm.
Preferably if it's a large enough account by budget, I prefer to do it at the campaign level. So I'll have campaign exact specific, broad match specific campaign phrase or whatever my match type strategy is in different campaigns. And that way I can watch that campaign very specifically and make sure when I change bids on it, I understand how that's going to impact the broad match version of that. I can watch CPCs on both of the different campaigns, kind of at a really high level, really quickly tell what's going on. Also allows me to use embedded negatives to make sure that broad match doesn't still exact match or phrase match doesn't still exact match. And I guess the last thing it allows you to do is better budget control when you do it at the campaign level. So if you ever have an instance where you really push spend at different times of the month or different quarters or something like that, if you have your keywords broken out by match type, sometimes it's as easy as pausing the broad match campaign as a whole, and you save a ton of money, and you still drive high volume, low CPA clicks if you have an exact match version of it or something like that. So it's both for performance and bidding. Also, there's, I think, personally some budget management tools that make it a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
So we got one more. So we did have enough time for one more question, which is what are some automated bid rules Hannapin uses? That's a really tough one to answer because usually if we use automated bid rules from rules versus an algorithm, it's very hyper specific to the account. So one thing we do make sure that we do is think through the implications. So if we're going to raise bids for keywords with great CPA, so let's say our CPA goal is $10, and we say, well, for any keyword that has a $5 CPA over the last 7 days or 30 days, depending on how much volume the account has, we're going to want to raise bids, but we'll put caveats to that. So we're not going to raise bids if we're already better than position 2, because we're just not going to see that much net gain. We're just going to pay more for the clicks we're already getting. We'll put a cap on the cost per click, and so we're not willing to go over this certain cost per click, so we'll get out of hand really quickly. And then you also have to make sure you have a negative to that rule, so at some point you pull it back down if it stops performing. So that's one thing that happens with automated rules, that they just run and run and run, and you just keep paying more and more and more, and you kind of forget about the effect there. So generally speaking, we either use algorithms or we use bid rules as suggestions, meaning we leave them in suggestion mode, we download them, we look through them, figure out what actually makes sense to us, and then we implement them and make sure we follow up on them later. But it's hyper specific. The best recommendation I can make is you just make sure you understand the correlation and have a counterbalance to the rule you set up. Kayla, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really like using automated rules for ad copy switch outs. Especially if you're running an ad copy that's got a deadline or something like that on it, or if you're really trying to test a very specific A/B message, asking it to flip over to the secondary ad copy at a certain point, I think is really important. But any automated rule is definitely going to come back, Jeff, to your point of making sure you set the secondary back switch of that so that you just aren't continuing to run down the street if there's a dead end there.
Absolutely. Well, perfect. So if you guys have some more questions, there's a couple options. You can obviously contact us directly at marketing@hannapinmarketing.com. Nice and easy there for you. And reach out with any questions. Like I say, we'll post the ones that we got during the session to PPC Hero, and we'll make sure we answer them as thoroughly as possible, including the ones we've already talked about if there's something we want to add there. And then you can get a free solutions blueprint from Hannafin Marketing for accounts that spend greater than $15,000 a month in ad spend. I'm not even going to try to read that URL to you, but it's basically just solutions blueprint sign up at Hannafin Marketing, and you will be able to find some information there.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so
All right.
much. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.